Time for another guide on Rimworld mechanics, people, and it's everyone's favorite today, Bionics. From the humble peg leg to the super advanced Archotech arm when you lose a limb out on the rim, gonna need a replacement. Speaking of replacements, I've actually been working on a super soldier program. Let's see how it's going. Okay, note to self, joy wire before installing body altering mechanics. Yeah, that should be it. So, as hinted at before, bionics or prosthetics in general are used to replace body parts. Prosthetics are meant to be replacements in the early game, with bionics for the mid to late game improving upon's body. The best part about them is if they get damaged, they can be healed, all without the risk of getting an infection. Granted, if you lose a limb, you gotta replace that, so keep the warranty just in case. Alright, before we actually talk about the variety of bionics, how does one actually use them? Well, bring in the doctor, cause that's the skill needed to replace pawn's limbs or install a replacement. I'm not even joking. Veteran Rimworld players have stories of bad doctors somehow killing their patients by failing a simple peg leg installation. So before you even think of doing this, unless it's an emergency, wait until you have hospital beds and sterile floors along with a professional of at least 6 to 8 medical skill. The first thing on today's list of prosthetics are the lowest of the low tier, just wood. Lots of wood. Wooden feet, wooden hands, wooden dentures, I assume are wooden teeth, and of course the classic peg leg. Yeah, these ones are the bare minimum for replacements, really only good for early gameplay or if you decide to harvest body parts and want to let prisoners go after doing that. If you do a bit of research, you can get proper prosthetics. These ones are like ones you can get today. They aren't as good as human parts, but can be used to replace lost limbs without too many issues. Now to the actual bionics, craftable and purchasable. These are the parts you use when you just want your best pawns to be even better, coming in the form of arms, legs, ears, eyes, organs, spines, and even tongues. They, for the most part, will give a 125% boost in efficiency. The only expectation are the tongue and spine, which are meant to properly replace them, though with the spine, your pawns will be immune to the bad back debuff. There is also the Power Claw Bionic, which is the only hand bionic in the base game, acting as a built-in melee weapon. It gives a pawn 100% efficiency and a weapon for doing armor-piercing sharp damage or cosplay as the evil Dr. Nazo from Golden Bat. Of course, that's not the best stuff. The best is the Archotech Bionics. With the eyes, arms, and legs all giving 150% efficiency, they are also rare treasure items that can only be found in Ancient Dangers, locked hermetic crates from the Ideology DLC, or quest rewards. Highly recommended for your best colonists, as any one of them will give a huge boost to productivity or to survival, even if they didn't ask for it. There are also 3 body items in the vanilla game. The Death Acidifier, which while in the base game doesn't show up without the Royalty DLC, a pawn equipped with that will lose all equipped items when they die. So it's really just a way for Randy to go haha on you. The Pain Stopper, which as the name suggests, prevents a pawn from feeling any pain. While this does seem like a good idea, it's a double-edged sword. A pawn who can't go down due to pain and shock will fight until they die, meaning if they're in a situation like being swarmed by insects, you will have a dead pawn on your hands. Finally, the Joy Wire, which gives a pawn a 30-point move boost, though at the cost of 20% consciousness. Great with another bionic we will mention later. This can be useful for some situations, keeping in mind this is a permanent bionic. I, for one, don't need this bionic. I got all my supporters on Patreon and Discord to keep me and my team happy. Now, before this last bit of the video, I wanted to take a moment to remind you all to like and subscribe to the channel, comment your favorite Rimworld fact, and maybe even consider donating to our Patreon. We have many wonderful supporters that we couldn't run this channel without. Of course, there are more than just the bionics from the vanilla game. There are a variety of side-grade bionics that you can get if you have the Royalty DLC. Most of them are worth getting, and if you do good with Empire, you could even learn how to make them. First off are the hand options. These include the aforementioned base game Power Claw, but you have the Venom Talon and the Hand Talon and the Field Hand. The Venom Talon makes it so you do toxic melee damage to opponents, which, while sounds good on paper, not so good for collecting food, as toxic buildup can rot away potential food. There is also the Venom Fangs, which alongside the Venom Talons can cause toxic buildup as a bionic weapon. The Hand Talon is like a lesser version of the Power Claw, but can have its uses. Finally, the Field Hand is an actual very useful tool for pawns who are dedicated to growing at the cost of 8% movement speed. You have a 160% plant work speed. Do keep in mind this is a speed, not harvest yield. For an arm replacement, you do have the drill arm, which, let's all be honest, we've all want one after seeing a certain mecha anime. Obviously, these ones make mining a breeze, plus armor-piercing melee damage, which is a nice bonus to offset a slower move speed. Elbow blades and knee spikes are useful for pawns who are gunmen but don't have bionic limbs. Give them these, and when enemies get too close, they have a personal melee weapon. On the subject of these hand and knee weapons, they are decent if you don't have bionic arms. Ranged pawns do get a melee option. However, I recommend full bionic limbs. As a bonus, there is yet another benefit to these robo limbs. In Rimworld, if a slave is holding a weapon, they are more than likely to rebel, but these limbs weapons do not count as proper weapons. Give a slave a shield, belt, and a weapon bionic, and you've got a decent wall unit. Just don't let them rebel, then you've got a dangerous enemy who more than likely is in the middle of your base. Did you know there are 3 extra bionic stomachs? Thought we'd only need 1 more, but royalty said let's have more. A repossessor stomach will reduce a pawn's hunger rate along with 125% efficiency, which actually translates to 8% less sleep needed. Kinda off, but okay. A detox stomach will prevent all pawns from having any food poisoning chances with 125% efficiency, though hunger rates are the same as a normal stomach. Finally, nuclear stomachs will reduce hunger rate by 95% and prevent food poisoning. Oh, and give a pawn cancer every 120 days. It's a nuclear stomach, what did you expect? Oh, and fun fact, if you EMP a pawn with these stomachs, like with EMP grenades, they throw up to the noses, which honestly don't have much use in the actual game, so these are more for replacing lost noses to prevent disfigurement. We have the gastro analyzer, which I would say could replace a nose, but you need a proper functioning nose for this to work, you know? What it does is give the pawn extra cooking speed. No rack controlling you required. The other option to actually replace noses is the aesthetic nose, which gives a +1 beauty, the equivalent of having the pretty trait. Great to keep the peace in the colony. For bionics that mess with a pawn's mind, we start with a learning assistant who provides a 20% learning rate, allowing your pawns with higher rank skills to keep the levels topped off and not lose levels. The Neuro Calculator gives a pawn a 20% research speed, helpful for obvious reasons. The Circadian Assistant, meanwhile, helps with a 20% restfall rate, allowing for more work. Finally, the Circadian Half Cycler takes away a pawn's need to sleep at the cost of 20% consciousness. My recommendation for pawns who have this, don't give it to pawns who need to shoot, as they need to be more alert to keep hitting targets. Pawns that need to do medicine also are a bad choice. Your doctors should always have the best manipulation, and the Half Cycler will mess with that. I would give crafter and builder pawns the implant. Yes, they will take longer to do their jobs, but quality will not change, just speed. Though lower level builders are more likely to fail, a higher quality one can keep the base built and maintained while everyone else sleeps. Though there are a few more mind-based implants that are more for a specific role. For these implants, they are for more specific styles of play and might need some Rimworld know-how to get the most out of them. First, the Psychic Reader. This will boost a pawn's negotiation abilities, and trade price improves proportionately to their psychic sensitivity. If you got a pawn who has a psychic sensitivity trait and can do social, this is the perfect gift for them. Though if you don't have that, you can give them the Psychic Sensitizer, which will boost a pawn's sensitivity by 25%. This is perfect if you want to do a psychic playthrough, as psychic sensitivity improves the amount of psi focus you get, though in return, psychic effects like droning will cause more problems to a pawn's mood than one without. Finally, rounding out the trio of psychic implants, the Psychic Harmonizer. This will give your colonists a kind of beacon around them that affects other pawns. The more sensitive the pawn with the implant and around them, the stronger the mood buff or debuff. Yeah, be careful with this one, though remember the joy wire. If you give a pawn a joy wire and this, you basically can spread the love all throughout the colony, or maybe a masochist and just keep them in pain, like with our next implant, the mindscrew. Its only purpose to give a pawn 20% pain. Yeah, masochist only. Unless you are in a colony with an ideology that loves pain, though there is another use with it, and it can help a psychic pawn as they recover neuro heat faster through pain. Honestly, before this video, me and my writer wrote this off as a garbage item, but there can be niche uses. And hey, if you want to put it on a prisoner and give them the Psychic Harmonizer, the Harmonizer works on pawns of the same faction. Keep the prisoner inside for a faction who keeps bugging you, and you can give them all the worst vibes.
The body does give a few more options, the 3 skin glands being the tough skin gland, the armor skin gland, and finally, the stone skin gland. Now tough skin is the weakest, but it gives you the armor with only a small reduction to movement, while stone skin gives the best armor traits, but in return, more slowness and a reduction to the beauty trait, as your pawns look like Ben Grimm. Despite the problems they might give, I think the benefits outweigh them. It's like having proper power armor on top of any other armor they might have. You could install the aesthetic shaper on top of the nose implant that can offset problems of an ugly pawn or one with stone skin. But say you don't have armored skin, you are going to need to stop the bleed out. Try the coagulator. It won't stop the bleeding, but it will slow it down by 50%, allowing for rescues and heals when you need it most. Though add on the healing enhancer, which will give your pawn the natural healing factor of 150% on top of giving their natural kidneys the immuno enhancer to give them a plus 8% immunity gain speed. Your pawns will be up and back to work like it never happened. Though there is something for the couples out there. The love enhancer will improve the get lovin' mood buff by 50%, but that's a little too steamy for YouTube. You know how it is, just use your imagination. I suppose there is something I should mention. The Silent Neuroformers are somewhat implant-like, and if you get one, you can give your pawns psychic powers just like my bionic soldiers.